Alright, let's dive into something pretty wild today. We're going to talk about a chemical that has this bizarre double life. On one hand, it's been used as a traditional folk remedy, and on the other, it's a seriously lethal poison. So how on earth can something be both a cure and a killer? And that's really the question, isn't it? We have this idea that natural means safe, but what happens when that natural cure is actually way deadlier than whatever it's supposed to be treating? That's the paradox we're getting into today. So our story starts with this little guy, the Mylabris cichorii beetle. In Vietnam, it's known as so ban miêu, and for centuries, it's been a big part of the local culture, but not as some pest. Nope, it's famous for something it carries inside its body, something incredibly potent. And this brings us to the beetle's strange, almost unbelievable dual identity. It is, at the same time, seen as a form of medicine and the source of horrific, deadly poisonings. How can it possibly be both? You might be wondering, why would anyone intentionally eat one of these things? Well, it all comes down to some really deeply held cultural beliefs. They're thought to have all sorts of medicinal powers, and they're even mistakenly believed to be an aphrodisiac. But whether someone eats it as part of a folk remedy or just by accident, the result can be absolutely catastrophic. So let's be clear, it's not really the beetle itself that's the problem, it's a specific, nasty chemical it produces. It's time to pull back the curtain and unmask the real culprit behind all these poisonings, a molecule called Cantharidin. So what exactly is this stuff? Well, Cantharidin is an incredibly potent toxin, but the key thing to know about it is that it's a vesicant. Now that's just a fancy science term for something that causes severe, painful blistering on any tissue it touches. We're talking inside your body, outside your body, everywhere. It's basically a chemical weapon designed by nature. And what makes Cantharidin so terrifyingly dangerous is just how tough it is. You can't cook it out, frying it, boiling it, heat just doesn't make it safe. Plus, it's so potent you don't need to eat a whole bunch of beetles to get sick. So the really crucial question is, how little does it actually take to kill you? Just a few milligrams. Seriously, we're talking about an amount smaller than a single grain of rice. If you ingest just that tiny speck, it can be fatal. This is not a poison that gives you a second chance. Its effects are fast, and they're absolutely unforgiving. So how does something so incredibly small cause so much damage? Well, to understand that, we need to zoom way in. I mean, from the whole body, right down to the microscopic level of your cells. Because this is where the real sabotage begins. Okay, that is a massive mouthful of scientific jargon, I know, but the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. Just imagine that your cells have these tiny little off switches that keep everything in balance and stop them from overreacting. Cantharidin's one devastating move is to find those off switches and permanently break them. So let's see what happens when a cell has absolutely no brakes. It kicks off this devastating chain reaction. So with those off switches broken, this cell's internal signals just go into total overdrive, creating absolute chaos. The cell can't function properly, it gets confused, and it triggers its own self-destruct sequence, a process we call apoptosis. Now just imagine millions of your cells doing this all at once. Entire tissues start to die off, which leads directly to organ failure. I mean, you can see the difference so clearly here. On the left, you got a healthy, orderly cell doing its job, but on the right, that's a cell under attack by Cantharidin. Its internal structure is collapsing, its signals are going completely haywire, and it's literally destroying itself. This microscopic chaos is what causes those horrific blisters and tissue death in a poisoning victim. Okay, so let's pull back from that microscopic view for a second and look at what all this cellular sabotage actually looks like in a real person. What are the real world consequences when a human body is under siege by this poison? The attack is terrifyingly fast. We're talking within just a few hours of eating it, the victim is experiencing horrific abdominal pain. They're vomiting blood, and they're getting these painful ulcers in their mouth and throat. Then, as the toxin gets filtered by the kidneys, it attacks them directly, causing severe injury within the first day. From there, the body can just spiral into shock, seizures, and a total system collapse. The list of symptoms is it's a brutal catalog of a multi-system assault. The poison goes after the digestive system, the urinary system, the heart, even the brain. It becomes a full-body crisis, and that is exactly why the mortality rate is so incredibly high without immediate, intensive medical care. So when you're faced with a poison this devastating, the obvious question is, how do you fight it? What can doctors possibly do? And this brings us to the urgent race for a solution, right? This is the most important question for any poisoning victim and for their doctors. Is there a magic bullet? Is there some specific chemical you can give someone to neutralize the toxin and just reverse all its effects? The answer is so stark, and honestly, it's terrifying. There is no antidote, none. Once cantharidin is in your system, you can't just turn it off. The damage has started, and there's no way to directly reverse it. So if you can't cure the poisoning, what do? Well, doctors are basically forced to play defense. The treatment is entirely supportive. That means they're just managing the awful symptoms and trying to keep the organs from failing. They'll use massive amounts of IV fluids to fight off shock, and if the kidneys shut down completely, they'll put the patient on dialysis. It's just this desperate battle to keep the body alive long enough for it to, hopefully, clear the poison all on its own. And this brings us to the really crucial point here. The best treatment is, without a doubt, prevention. These poisonings keep happening, especially in rural areas where these traditional beliefs are still very strong. So the ultimate solution isn't found in a hospital bed, it's found in public awareness campaigns that can educate people about the true danger of soba miêu. But here is a really fascinating twist in the story. What if this poison's greatest strength, its terrifying ability to force cells to self-destruct, could actually be turned into a weapon for good? Believe it or not, researchers are exploring exactly that. They're creating what are called derivatives of cantharidin. Basically, they're tweaking the molecule to make it less toxic to the whole body, but still absolutely lethal to specific targets. The goal here is to design a kind of smart bomb that uses this ancient poison's cell-killing power to destroy cancer tumors, and only cancer tumors. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, until science can fully tame this molecule for our own use, the fight against cantharidin poisoning really comes down to three critical things: making sure the public is aware of the danger, getting an early diagnosis when someone has symptoms, and getting aggressive supportive care in a hospital, fast. And we'll leave you with this final thought. The story of cantharidin is just such a powerful reminder that natural does not always mean safe, and it really makes you wonder, how many other folk remedies, passed down through generations, might be hiding a similar deadly secret, just waiting for science to unmask it?